Hello there everyone, and welcome back to this battle series. This is the Indian Mutiny of 1857 battle series, and this is the Siege of Cawnpore. Now, the Siege of Cawnpore wasn't technically conducted within a fort, but it was the only map we could find that had houses in it. So, what happened in Cawnpore is that the British garrison got surprised, and they were forced to take up a defensive position in the edge of town in a few houses, together with around 600, there was 300 British soldiers and about 600 European civilians that follow them, seeking shelter. And I took up a very badly defended position in the corner of the town of Cawnpore. I wouldn't say it was badly defended because they held out for 3 weeks, but it wasn't the best of the defensive locations as it were. So the forces on the British side, we've got Major General Sir Hugh Wheeler being in charge of the British garrison, as I said, on about 300 soldiers. And then we got Nana Sahib being the commander on the side of the Indians, and he had quite a few more troops. Somewhere maybe as much as 4,000 soldiers, but they were at first reluctant to attack them since they believed that the British had put up gunpowder stores around the front edge of the entrenchments, and the Indian thought if they moved up to it, the British would blow it and it would blow the Indian to pieces. But for these 3 weeks, both sides probably suffered quite heavily, although the British suffered probably the most. Although the Indians did try a few frontal assaults, they weren't able to actually break through, and what they decided instead was to concentrate and go building by building, trying to flush the British out either by setting fire to the building or a constant bombardment of round shots, since the Indians had quite a few cannons. I'm gonna go closer here and look as the initial fight is gonna take place now. Canister shot and rifle fires ripping through the lines here. I believe there's a pretty good canister shot here. We'll see. It sort of overshot. It only killed one guy over here, but it killed quite a few back here where the shot actually landed. I think the better canister shot is the one that's made by this cannon, so we'll focus over here. So for this battle I have 3 units of 60 men inside the house, and I have 3 cannons. And that's roughly what the... Ooh, that's a nice canister right there. And that's roughly what the British had at the battle. But the British were fighting a losing battle from the start, and they weren't really able to hold on. Although a relief force was moving in. Highlander relief force was moving in to aid them, although they were gonna be too late, as it were. So the main thing about this isn't that it's the militarily important, but it's important for the, how should I say, the overall the sort of how the British viewed the rebellion or the mutiny from here on, because of what's going to happen after this. So the British were suffering from malaria, all sorts of, not malaria, but there was a small outbreak of smallpox, although that wasn't their main concern. There was a shortage of water and food and medical supplies, since one of the main buildings that kept the medical supply was burnt. So they were struggling to hold on, and when Saib reached out to them and said that they are allowed to surrender, and he would acquire boats for them so they can travel down the rivers, taking all of the guns and so forth with them, the commanding officer didn't really have a choice there, since it was fighting a losing battle. So agreed upon it. And here is where the sort of nasty stuff start to happen, and I should probably caution people at this point from quite a gruesome story that's gonna unfold. So they were led out, the surviving Europeans were led out and escorted by the entire Indian rebel force down to the river, where they were to get on these boats and travel down the river. Now there are some points here if it was actually a planned ambush, or if it just was provoked by one side, or if it was just some random occurrence. But anyways, as the British were trying to board, there erupted in the confusion gunfire, and all the Indians descended upon the British, which were at this point quite outnumbered, and they started attacking and basically slaughtering all of them. And as it were, only 7 people managed to get away, although not everyone was killed, but most people were killed. But the Indians spared around 120 women and children, although they only spared them temporarily. As I said, there were a Scottish regiment marching up to relieve the force, and Saib sent his men out to confront this relief force, but they were unable to stop them. And I'm not sure if anyone actually gave the order, but the idea was basically to retaliate on the British for killing executing other mutineers earlier on. And so they decided, although we do not know exactly who decided, they decided that they would kill all these women and children that they have sort of kept locked up in a building. So at first the sepoys came to empty the house, which the women and children were put in. Although the women and children of course didn't want to go, so they barricaded themselves, at which point the sepoys opened fire and fired 2 volleys into the building where the women and children were held. And at this point quite a lot of them got injured, and the order was again given to the sepoys to clear out the building, although there's quite a few, or most of the sepoys, were disgusted by the fact that they were shooting women and children and refused, and so they left. Now you might have think that they should cease their activities, but they were pretty determined to kill these women and children. So 4 local butchers were brought in, and with butcher's tool, cleavers and knives, they went through the building, killing everyone they could find, all the women and children, cut down by by knives, butcher's cleavers. Although it gets worse. They emerged about an hour later, and it said that anyone who saw them would run in terror just from the look of them. And as the British closed in, the Indians decided that they were going to get rid of the evidence by stuffing all the dead bodies down a dry well nearby. So they sent in volunteers to clear out the dead women and children. And as it turned out, not all of them had died. The butchers had missed a few children and probably a few women as well, that had hidden under the dead bodies of their friends and loved ones. And so at this point, the sort of cleaning crew decided that they were still going to carry out the job. So what they did was they started with the youngest children, and they dropped them, still living, down the well. And then after that, they dropped the bodies of the dead women and children on top of them. And as the Scottish actually reached the compound, he said that it was the worst sight he had ever seen. So quite nasty stuff. And at this point it becomes a rallying cry for the British, and sort of the outcry in the British public basically gives the army gives them the total free rein on what they can do to the Hindu population, or the mutineers. And the retaliation is quite swift. The only number that I've got is quite unreliable, but as a direct retaliation after these women were found by the Scottish regiment, it is said that about 7,000 Indians were killed. Although this is it's a debated number, but it sure gives the British a sort of blank check in which they can basically do anything they please with the mutineers. So as I said, it's not a very important battle militarily, but it sort of fuels it to the point of almost a religious war, where it is the Hindus and Muslims versus the Christian Britons. And yeah, this is the siege of Cawnpore. Did I say it? But it became sort of a rallying cry, or a battle cry, for the British upon this point, to say, remember Cawnpore, every time they went into battle, and to basically spare no one of the enemy. And with the fact that the Victorians regarded women and children as quite sacred, and that this kind of unthinkable atrocity committed towards them would be quite unthinkable, and the Indian population would suffer for this. As a direct response, the Scottish regiment actually forced sepoys and others they found to lick the blood, or to lick the floor within the building where the women and children had been killed. So it turned out to be a very nasty affair. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this battle reconstruction of the siege of Cawnpore, and I hope you not. You should probably find other sources to look into this history to get the fuller picture of this. But I hope you aren't too disgusted by this story. And yeah, otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be seeing you for the next one. Bye.